What's going on, guys, in the works? And today we're going to be talking about everybody's favorite topic, and that is weapon balancing, weapon buffs, weapon nerfs, and patching in general. Because if there's one thing we have not gotten a lot of here in Battlefield 4 on the patch side of things, and that is weapon balancing. But you have seen a lot of different DICE people from their side of the ball talking about some of the proposed changes. There's been several videos floating around the community talking about some of the things that Alan Kurtz has been talking about on Twitter, some of the nerfs, some of the buffs, and we're going to get into that. We're going to talk a little bit about weapon balancing in Battlefield 4, but this gameplay you're going to be watching is a nice little run here on Operation Locker, a map that I absolutely despise, and oh man, that guy got really unlucky not to kill me there. I don't know how I didn't die, but this is a map I don't particularly like. But since it was an Ace 23 gameplay, and we're going to be talking about weapon balancing, and this is one of the weapons that people tend to think is one of the overpowered assault rifles in the game, I figured, hey, perfect opportunity for a backdrop on a commentary talking about weapon balancing. But let's get into the meat of this. Let's talk about weapon balancing, and the reason why I have not mentioned it a ton in my videos, and I've just been staying away from it, and that is because there is a lot of problems with Battlefield 4 right now. I think there's no secret, you know, there's been tons of negativity towards Battlefield 4. I don't want this to be a negative video, but netcode and hit detection and all that stuff is one of the main issues we currently have with Battlefield 4. And I find it really hard to make an assessment on a weapon when I'm not really sure how good the weapon actually works in a 24/7 scenario because there is so much inconsistency in the game. Let's take everyone's favorite weapon, the DMR, for example. It's probably one of the more underused weapon classes in the game. In fact, it's probably the most popular weapon that people say needs to be buffed because it's obviously not working because no one uses it. They're pretty underpowered in a lot of people's eyes. Well, if you think about it, do we really know if DMRs are underpowered? Because as it stands right now, DMRs are an accuracy-based weapon. When your accuracy-based weapons aren't actually hitting said target because of the netcode problems, how do you really know how good a DMR is? I almost feel like once we get the netcode fix in, DMRs will feel a lot more solid because there's so much server inconsistency. Sometimes you'll go into a server and you're just doing awesome. You know, your weapons are hitting, you're killing people super fast. And I've had that happen with DMRs. I've used them and said, man, these are really strong. And I've gone in the other servers and I'm like, oh, I can't hit anything with this thing. So in my eyes, maybe we're overreacting. Maybe we need to get the game fixed before we talk about which weapons need to be patched. And I was actually kind of glad to see that they didn't actually tweak any weapons yet in this latest patch because the latest patch was a big deal. It was not a good patch. It kind of set things back a little bit on my end of the ball. And I'm actually kind of annoyed by that because it seems like we get a good patch, then we get a bad patch, then we get a good patch, then we get a bad patch. So it's almost good that they didn't include any sort of weapon tweaks right now. And I actually posted on Facebook. I was like, hey, you know, I'm going to stop the showdowns for now. And that really pained me to do because I probably have, at this point, I have 3 showdowns pretty much edited, ready to go. You know, I've got my templates laid out and all that stuff. But because of all the issues with the way weapons perform via netcode and all those hit detection problems, and the fact that I know there's a giant weapon patch just looming over us because we've yet to get one, it's made it really hard for me to push those out because I don't want to give you guys a crappy showdown. I don't want to say, here's a showdown that's relevant for like a week, then, you know, the next week we get the weapon patch and all of a sudden the Ace 23 isn't as good as the M416 anymore. You know, it's worse. And you guys can go and watch my video and you're like, well, hey, you said this weapon's better. Well, now it's not because it got patched. Things like that. That's the things that I really pride myself in doing correctly, and that's why I kind of toned back the showdowns. Do I still want to do them? Absolutely. I have it. Like I said, I got a ton edited already, ready to go. But that just plays back into the art of weapon patching and getting things right. Because it's unfortunate that they've had to spend so much time fixing the technical side of things that they haven't got the focus on the weapons and the fun stuff like that. Because balancing weapons is exciting to me. I don't know why. Call me a nerd. I think the challenge to get the perfect harmony among weapons is actually almost like a puzzle, which is interesting because developers do have a very difficult task when it comes to balancing weapons because Battlefield 3 had the M16 AEK, you know, the typical assault rifles that everybody used. Well, they nerfed medic a little bit, they made it a little bit less effective, and essentially they've made it so people are running more classes, which is awesome. And I think Battlefield 4 has done a good job overall. Are weapons like the Ace 21, the Ace 23, the L85, AEK all really good? Yeah, but you see a lot of people using different weapons. which is always nice in my eyes because variety is the spice of life. So some of the things they've talked about nerfing, obviously we've talked about the buffs to the DMR. They're talking about nerfing the AA, which is something that definitely needs to be done. Some of the different damage models on the AA gun. Some of the smart missiles are going to get nerfed. I actually saw a tweet this morning from Alan Kurtz saying that he's going to be taking a look at all these smart missiles, so like the AA active radar missiles, the MBT Law, the staff shell, stuff like that, where it's you just kind of fire and forget it, and if you get close, you get a shot on the actual target, which a lot of people don't like, me included. I think it kind of dilutes the game from a skill standpoint, but I understand, I guess, why they put them in there. They were trying to make the game a little bit more accessible at the early levels, but I think it may have gone a little bit overboard, so that's a welcome change. Now, as far as weapon balancing, they haven't been too open on it. They've talked about like grenade balance changes and stuff like that, but as far as core weapons like the Ace 23 getting some sort of nerf, they haven't really talked about that a ton. So I'm interested to see what route they take with that, because like I said with the DMR argument, I would say that netcode is a lot of the problems with some of these weapons. You see a lot of PDWs out there not getting used. That was actually an awkward way to word that. You see a lot of PDWs that just aren't used, and I think that plays back into the netcode thing. I mean, if you've got a slow fire rate weapon that doesn't do a lot of damage, people are going to be kind of passive to use that because they're not going to want to put themselves in the scenario where they're going to get one shot by another weapon and none of their bullets are actually going to fire, because it gets very frustrating. So I think once we get past the storm that we have to weather of hit detection and netcode, if they ever do get past it, I think then we'll start to see which weapons are good and which weapons are bad. Like I said, weapon balancing is a very difficult art. I do not envy any of the DICE developers, but I think they've done a pretty good job from the get-go, to the fact that we don't need a ton of changes out there. I think there's a lot of small things they can fix, but as far as core weapons, there's not a lot of changes. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know, which weapons would you like to see patched? Which weapons would you like to see changed? I'm talking about guns here, like just the base guns. Do you think anything needs a nerf? Do you think anything needs a buff? Let me know in the comments. And if you missed any of my past videos, here is a chance to catch up. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.